Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com with you for another episode of the Steelers preview, where the Pittsburgh Steelers are preparing for the Buffalo Bills this Sunday in week 1, and we are going to get you prepared as well during this show. We have a lot of news to talk about, of course. Before we get to all that, I want to bring in Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer. What's up, Bryan?
Hey, glad to be back. Glad to be here. What a great day. And next time we're talking about an official Steeler game. We're talking about the second Steelers game on the preview. So I cannot wait. It's all starting, my friends.
It's all starting indeed. And Dave Schofield, the editor behind the Steel Curtain. What's up, Dave?
I'm just happy right now. I'm happy. I'm happy with the stuff that went on today. I'm happy. Well, the most disappointing thing seeing Jeff Hartman is that we don't have like a window where we can see the ocean behind him or anything right now. But I'm glad to be here with you guys. And Bryan said this about talking about an actual regular season game. I did that a little bit on my Stat Geek podcast that came out this morning. And boy, did I ever nerd it up talking about, comparing it to a firecracker and things like that. So I'm ready to explode for this. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Yes, I am on location in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. So taking in the last bit of summer before we head back to get ready for the winter and hunker down with the Pittsburgh Steelers being in the regular season getting started. Not the best time to go on vacation leading up to the first game, but nonetheless, we got a good deal. So we'll just do it that way.
It better be a good deal. As many breaking news stories of you as we've had while you've been there.
All right. So let's get this show on the road with the news of the day. And that is TJ Watt, Trent Jordan, right? Isn't that what that stands for? Trent Jordan?
Yes, absolutely.
Trent Jordan Watt is going to be with the Steelers for another 5 years, including this year, as he signed a 4-year reported extension, roughly about $28 million. I want to throw it over to Dave, though, because, Dave, you've gotten some news and some numbers about the contract. By this time, when people are listening live on YouTube or on Facebook Live, the news has already been broken. Everyone knows that he's going to be staying, but you know some contract numbers. Now, go ahead, Dave. Why don't you explain that?
Okay. Well, first of all, you had the initial numbers it was Schefter and Rappaport of the 4-year extension for just over $112 million. That makes a lot of sense with what Jerry Dulock then reported to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette of 5 years. Yep. Good old Jerry Bear, 5 years, 122.1 million, I think is what it was, which is exactly right, because you add in the 10.089 million that he was supposed to have this year, and boom, the numbers make sense. So the way to think of it is when they do the contracts, they like to do how much new stuff it is, because if you include this year, then and average it out that way, then he's not the highest paid guy. It's based on the new money. So that's the new money, and that's what makes him the highest paid defensive player. But Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk broke the news that he had an inside source that had how it broke down year by year. We'll have this as an article first thing in the morning at behindthesteelcurtain.com. But I can tell you right now that the salary cap hit for 2021 is reportedly, if Florio's numbers are correct, $8 million. Which is more than $2 million less than it would have been. So the Steelers now have an extra $2 million towards the salary cap. Don't feel like, let's run out and sign it. I mean, if they don't use that money, it rolls into next year, which will help pay for the $31 million salary cap hit that he'll be having in 2022. But in all the breakdown, the big thing is, according to Florio, 3 guaranteed years, 3 fully guaranteed years this year. 2022 and 2023 are all fully guaranteed contracts. The way it works out, $35 million signing bonus, $1 million base salary this year. So he's getting $36 million this year, $24 million next year, and $20 million the year after, all of which were guaranteed. That's your $80 million in guaranteed money.
Okay, that's a lot of stuff. Save that for the Stat Geek. Now I'm just joking. Bryan, I'm
not holding those numbers for a week.
I know. I want to throw it to Bryan. Bryan, you're kind of like the in-between. Like, Dave's the analytical. I'm the more of like I'm just going to go with my gut. You're kind of in between. I feel like both of us in terms of the way we approach. When you heard the news, Bryan, and you saw some of the numbers, just some of the numbers, 4 years, highest paid defender, what was your reaction to that news?
The only thing that I cared about at that time that it is done, because you're going to get a lot of people, and we've heard this leading up to this entire situation to today. We've heard, well, you can't pay a defensive player this much. This is only quarterback money. But what happens when you don't sign him and he ends up somewhere else? Then you're like, this is what the Steelers do. They can't keep a superstar. They can't do it. This is something that this team needed to do. You have to pay. Sometimes you have to pay for what it's worth for your family, for your team, in your personal life, whatever. You have to make that big expense. And this is a big expense that is going to go a long way to, one, show other people that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to pay, because even though we know they pay, and we know that they're typically in the upper echelon as far as salary, there's a lot of people that think that this team is cheap. But the big thing about it, it goes on the side of TJ Watt. He did something that I have been waiting for athletes to do for the longest time, and he marched into the Rooney's office and he said, forget about my agents. We got a deal. And then says, excuse me, I got to get back to practice. That's amazing. He stood up to his agents. We've seen this a lot of times where the agents hold this stuff up. There's no doubt in my mind agents held up Le'Veon Bell a couple years ago. The agents told him what to do and says, trust me. You know what I mean? Trust me. We're going to get the money you deserve.
The only reason I'm saying that was there was actually a report the first time Bell, the first year he was tagged, that his agent said, oh, this is a great deal. Let me take this to Lev. Nope. And then he turned it down. That the agent wanted him to take it, and he said no. Don't know if that's true or not, but yeah.
Well, there were different reports, but what I'm saying is we've seen this throughout the years. Trust me, I will get you the money.
So here's my theory on that story, though, about TJ Watt. Agents are smart. PR people are smart. Anyone that follows Steelers Twitter, which can be absolutely mind-numbingly awful on more than one occasion. It's so idiotic at times. And the speculation surrounding this whole contract prior to Thursday when it broke I was done. I was done with it. I talked about it on my Let's Ride that'll air on Friday morning. I said, I'm not even want to talk about this. I'm so sick and tired of talking about it because mainly it's taking away from the game coming up this Sunday. I honestly felt that. And we're going to talk a lot about that. But here's my theory. So here I am on vacation. I'm with my dad, who's a big Steeler fan. He's one that got me into the Steelers. And he said, what do you think about this story? He read the article on Behind the Steel Curtains website. And I said, honestly, Dad, here's my thought. Fans were turning on TJ Watt. Don't think they weren't. If you are, maybe you're following different people, but there were a lot of fans that were really disgruntled that he wasn't practicing fully. He wasn't participating. And now all of a sudden there were rumors like, oh, well, he's not doing this. He's not doing that. What better way to get the fans back on your side than you put out a report, a source to Adam Schefter, that you walked into Art Rooney II's office, said, screw my agents. You got a deal. Oh, by the way, I got to go work out. I mean, come on. And fans are going to eat that stuff up. They're going to just lap it up and say, oh, TJ Watt, where do I go get my number 90 jersey? Oh, my gosh, he's my favorite again. Don't think for a second that the fans they were going sour. Dave, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I almost agree with you. I'm going to take it a different little angle and say, I don't think they made up the story. I think they might have just orchestrated it. I'm not saying
he made it up. I'm not saying it was fabricated. Okay. I'm saying that story, though, in and of itself, is like the stuff of Steelers lore. It's almost like the Troy Polamalu signing before he gets on the plane in week 1, stuff like that.
My thing is the agents might have said, you know what, TJ, I think if we can negotiate into tomorrow, we can get you some more money. But if you want to, you could just walk into Mr. Rooney's office and accept this yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, yes. And I mean, I have no doubt that he didn't walk into his office and accepted himself. And I don't really care. I don't care how it went down. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer with it. I love the story. That's going to be that's the version I'm going with. And let's roll into this season.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, guys, I want Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy to be real. Please don't take this TJ Watt thing away from me. I am going to get the Men in Black thing and take that to my head right now and forget everything you guys said for the last 2 minutes. And all I know is agents are bad. TJ Watt is good.
The Steelers
are good. And he signed a deal.
Don't just remember, public perception matters all the time. Okay, so anyways, I want to bring up something else. I want to transition away from the Watt story and the details. We'll be talking about that for a while. Let's also talk about the upcoming game, Steelers and Bills. And we're going to get into players to watch, but I want to connect the dots here between these two stories. So normally I would say TJ Watt's coming back. He hasn't practiced in team drills. He hasn't hit anyone. He hadn't played any preseason games. Now he has returned to practice this week. It starting on Wednesday. But now all of a sudden Alex Highsmith misses practice on Thursday. He limited with a groin on Wednesday, does not participate in practice on Thursday. And you're thinking he's trending in the wrong direction. He's trending as if he's not going to play on Sunday, barring him practicing fully on Friday, which I don't think will happen. There's a chance that TJ and Melvin Ingram are going to be your bookend pass rushers with Jameer Jones and the Pokemon King didn't make the team, did he?
Nope.
I didn't think so. So that's it. TJ Watt is a special player. No one's denying that. Mike Tomlin said he's not normal. How big of a deal is it that he is not? Because he's been there working out. He's in shape, trust me. But game shape is different than being in shape, in my opinion. How big of a deal is it that TJ Watt has not been a part of team drills or any preseason game up until Wednesday of this week, entering week 1 against the Bills? Brian, will go with you first.
Well, it certainly is a big deal, but if you are a player that has it in your blood and has played the caliber that he has played the last couple of years, you've got to hope that he could just jump and get right back on that horse. Will he be rusty? Yes. I talk about rust all the time, especially when I talk about quarterbacks. So I would be hypocritical if I said that there isn't going to be a lot of rust here, but it's a different kind of rust than when you're talking about a quarterback. This is him getting back into shape and getting to a quarterback, which a lot of the drills that he's done on his own, I'm hoping that they were with agility and speed and enough to carry over to get him there. The main thing that anybody would be worried about is health and him tweaking something, but I'm sure he's done a lot of things in that manner with his work ethic, with what he's been doing. The good thing is he hasn't been at home on the couch. So there's things that he's been doing. Yes, it matters, but it would matter more if he was home.
Dave, what are your thoughts on that game shape question?
Game shape question. I mean, are any of these guys really in game shape? When you think about it, I mean,
yeah, I think so. Maybe not fully ready, but they're further down the road than TJ is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, Ben Roethlisberger has 16 snaps. Joe Hayden has 5.
Neither of those players are going to be tasked with beating a giant mountain of a man every single snap for 4 quarters.
Exactly. So there is that whole human element of practice that I'm going to be lined up against another person and we're both going to be in pads and I have to beat you. Absolutely. But I'll be honest with you, from what we hear from other teams, they don't do that very much either during the preseason. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that TJ's there and he's continued to get in the work, is he going to be rusty? Sure. But everyone's going to be rusty to some degree. It's going to be what level is it? And I'll take a high rust TJ Watt over just about anyone else that the Steelers could have out there. Would it be better? Yes, but it's still not that it's the end of the world, if you know what I mean.
All right. Okay, so enough of Trent Jordan for a little bit. Let's talk about this upcoming game, Steelers and Bills, which, by the way, I always do articles with the opposing website. In this case, it was Buffalo Rumblings of SB Nation. And they always ask me questions. And I just go over to the other site and check out the article and see what the comments are from the opposing fan base. Boy, are the Buffalo Bills fans an arrogant bunch this year. They think this game is going to be a cakewalk, going up in with the Steelers on the road, fans being in Buffalo, all of that stuff. I mean, I was stunned. I thought Buffalo, considering they're Buffalo, would be a little bit more humble. And no, they are Wow, arrogant. I was surprised. Nonetheless, we're going to break this down with some players to watch. We're going to talk about the Steelers first, and we're going to break it down offense and defense. No real order. You don't have to have any number, just players that you are looking at and saying, I want that they either need to have a big game or keep an eye on this player. They could be a deciding factor in the outcome of the game. So in this upcoming matchup, Steelers-Bills, week 1 on the road, Orchard Park, New York. Let's go offense first. We'll start with Bryan. Give me a player that you are like, hey, this guy is a linchpin. He needs to play well. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to go right off the bat and say that we have to see a great performance from Najee Harris in this game, because he is the guy that's going to change this offense if anything happens. Look, we need all 11, sure. But Najee, it's got the running game has got to be upgraded, and it's got to be at superstar level. So I expect a rookie of his caliber to come out in this first game and actually do very well.
All right, Najee Harris. It's a good one. I like it. Dave, what about you? Offensive player.
Okay, well, there's several along this line of thought that I could go with, but I will pick one specifically because will be the center of that, and I'm going to go with Kendrick Green because he's you liked my line of thought there, Bryan?
In center, yeah,
in the center of that, boy.
Yes. So I'm going with Kendrick Green because it starts in the middle and moves out on both sides. If the middle is weak, it's going to be kind of tough. You know, you can disguise one side by going the other way. When it's right in the middle, it's going to be tough. But he's a rookie. He's coming into his first game. And I know that you got Dan Moore Jr. out there on the left tackle as well. But I'm going more with Green just because I had to pick one of them.
No,
so, I mean, if he could come out and do an adequate job in pass defense, because that's where he struggled with so far the most, and dealing with a bull rush and someone, I mean, he's undersized compared to the guys that are lining up across from him in a lot of cases. Although I haven't checked the Bills roster to know if that's the case or not. But if he can explode on the run plays and hold his own on the pass plays, then that's going to really help this offensive line come together and for the Steelers offense to do what they would like to do.
Yeah, so for me in offense, I always say I think it's, especially in this contest, it starts and ends with BTR, Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. I think he's going to have a good game, but more specifically, something Bryan alluded to earlier in the show, and that is don't turn it over. We can't have that absolute backbreaking critical interception. You think back to last season, it was the pick 6 right before halftime. It was a completely different game before and after that pick. Roethlisberger doesn't. What the hope is that both Dave and Bryan lead to their players or positions doing enough that you can have more of a balanced approach. But Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, Ben Roethlisberger, for those that might be new to the show, that's his full name, by the way. He's going to have to play well. He's going to have an efficient game. I would love for him to be, I don't know, around 30 attempts. That's it. Not having to throw the ball 40 times, 45, 50 times, anything like that. Is there anyone else on offense, though, Bryan, that you're saying, like, key on this player, this someone you might want to watch?
Yeah, I think you want to take a good look at Eric Ebron in this game.
That was the other one I was going to say, too. Mm-hmm. That's a good one, Bad.
Yeah. He is definitely a guy that they are going. Ben has a rapport with him. I know 7 drops last year, but in your minds, he had 77 because that's what the fans think about Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron, Dave and in the Vertex, Dave and Jeffrey brought up the fact that he was blocking so much better this year. I think he's going to be very important to this team. You're going to need some stuff over the middle. They have great corners, especially in Tre'Davious White. White is awesome. They had that pick 6. It was Poyer who had the pick 6 last year that turned this game around. So really exploit the middle, and who better to do it with than Eric Ebron?
Dave, is there anyone else on offense you would have mentioned?
I was just going to throw in a little bit more with Eric Ebron because that would have been my choice as well. But with that Vertex article that Jeffrey and I did that pointed out that he was a good blocker, that article actually impressed a lot of people, including Eric Ebron.
Yes.
Who enjoyed that one, by the way. So, I that was a really good one, Bad, because people got to remember most of his drops were late in the season last year. So if he can come out holding onto the ball early in the season, improved in the blocking game, when it, getting involved with the run when he's lining up as that H-back role and showing that he can get in there and mix it up. Let's get it going. Because honestly, the other what is did you call this X factor? How did you define it, Jeff?
No, this is just players to watch.
Players to watch. If you just take out offensive people to watch and take out the word player, then it's Matt Canada, if you know what I mean. And when it comes to the play calling, is that cheating to give that answer?
No, because make sure I was going to say Matt Canada as well.
Yeah.
And I was going to plug the article / podcast we did with Chase Claypool when he was talking about the difference between Matt Canada. Good job, Brian, by the way. If you haven't checked it out,
great interview,
great interview. Go ahead, Dave. Continue.
Oh, what I was going to say with Matt Canada is, if you really want to know what he's going to bring, look at the first drive and even maybe into the second drive, depending on how the first one goes. Look at those scripted plays. Those scripted plays for the Steelers for years, when I say years, meaning the Randy Land years, have been terrible. The Steelers have been awful with their offensive script to open a game. I want to see them with a much different, much better improved offensive script to start. I think we're going to know right away in this game what kind of impact Canada could have on it.
I agree. And I was going to say Matt Canada, but I'm going to go with Chase Claypool. I'm going to go and I'm going to plug that article. If you haven't checked it out yet, Brian did about a 10-minute interview, one-on-one exclusive with Chase Claypool, and Chase Claypool's partnering with Pepsi, and you can listen to the podcast. And I wrote an article based on some of his comments, and his comments comparing Matt Canada's offense to Randy Fichtner's were very telling. So were what he felt like he needed to improve upon. Look, I think we can all agree, if there's going to be a receiver that's going to be viewed across the league as a number one, or a player that you have to identify as take him out or shade his way, I think it's Chase Claypool. This is going to be a chance for Chase Claypool in his sophomore season to step up and really take charge and say, you know what? Yeah, they're going to have to try and stop me. And I'm okay with that arrogance being there. But at the same time, I think this is a great opportunity for Chase Claypool to not just show the Steelers fans, the Steelers organization, but also the rest of the NFL that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2021. I'd love to see him, stretch the field, get a few deep balls, and really open up things underneath for Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Eric Ebron, which we mentioned. Pat Freiermuth as well in the red zone for sure. Any other offensive players before we go to defense? I'm good. Brian, you good?
We're good.
All right, let's go to defense now. Let's take a look at the defensive side. Brian, we'll go in the same rotation. What do you think in terms of players to watch on the defensive side?
We need a big game, the Pittsburgh Steelers do, from Cam Hayward. When Stephon Tuitt is out, man, Dave, I'm sorry I do this to you all the time.
Keep taking my answers.
Hey, I would be glad to go second. I have no
that's
problem
fine.
with it. And, I've learned so much from you, Dave. That's why I think like you now. But, Cam Hayward, when Stephon Tuitt is out, plays so much better, and he's the guy that he goes ahead and realizes that, all right, I've got to save my team. He's kind of has that Superman mentality that he's going to take care of things on the line. He reminds me of Joe Green just in the fact that he's a leader of a very good line, and it falls on him too when things go wrong in the locker room or anywhere. It's Cam Hayward who's speaking up about. He is the true voice of that team. And without a couple of studs on defense right now, especially with the possibility that there is no Highsmith out there, the fact that there is no Tuitt, and we don't know exactly how banged up. And we know he was back in practice, but Alualu was a little bit banged up. Or Alualu, I mess that up all the time. But with that being said, Cam Hayward really needs to, get to the quarterback and stop the run, and he's got to take over in the trenches.
All right, Dave, I know he took your answer, but go ahead. Who's your player?
But he did a great job with it, so I have to say that as Tyler W. said, he enjoyed the Vertex article today that Jeffrey and I had about Cam Hayward and about his. Even though he didn't have the big sack numbers last year, he still had the same amount of pressures for actually more last year than he had even had in recent years. So he's still, figuring out his role. But when they need Cam to step up, guess what? He does whatever they need to do. So that was a good job, Brian. I'm going to go with Let's see if I can mesh this together right. I'm going to go with Bushbert. I'm going to say Bushbert because Showbush doesn't sound right. In other words, Brian's face. In other words, the tandem at inside linebacker together. And the reason I'm putting them together because it really does come to them playing together. That I think is going to be key to everything. Devin Bush coming back in his first regular season game since the injury, and Joe Schobert coming in as the trade acquisition with the Steelers. How they mesh, how they play together, how they're going to defend the pass, defend the run, everything that they're going to do. It's just going to be key for them to step up and be the guys in the middle of that defense that a lot of times, remember, it's the big guys up front's job, like in the run game, to take up bodies so those guys behind them are free to make the play.
It's funny. I was like, well, Dave's going to go with one of the inside linebackers, so I'll just take the other one. So if he says Bush, I'll say Schobert. If he says Schobert, I'll say Bush. What does he do? He says both of them. What the heck? Anyways, I'm going to go with, we'll go with the obvious in TJ Watt, especially now. He would have been on my list anyways. And I don't think there was any chance he was not playing this week, even if they didn't get a contract done. I'll say that right off the bat. But now that they have a contract done, don't you think there's going to be a little bit more pressure on him to perform? Maybe not. I don't know. But for me, I definitely would be thinking, shoot, I got to go out there and I got to make some plays. Like, I got to make some plays. Let's see. I want to see. And then, like you said, I think Brian mentioned with Highsmith potentially being out, that totally changes the dynamic as a pass rushing duo, trio, whatever you want to call it. So TJ Watt's definitely on my list. Brian, any other defenders?
Yeah, I look at the secondary, and I think actually the entire secondary, they've got to come through, but we need a game. The fans need a game from Terrell Edmonds. Fedarius, he's up against his brother. He needs to show off.
All right. Dave, and any other defenders you're thinking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just got caught off guard.
I saw that, and I'm not bringing that
I
up.
need a hashtag. And they say Taco Sushi says nerds of steel. I like that. So anyway, another defender, yes. Who was it going to say? Okay. I know why I was saying who am I going to say, because I don't know who I'm going to say.
Nice.
Because it's going to be the slot corner. And we don't know
exactly
who it is.
Nerds of steel.
No, really.
Dave's pulling a Brian.
Yeah. I'm pulling
That's not Brian.
No, that's a
At
bad.
least have Nerds of Steel.
Nerds of steel. Okay. No. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to come back. I'm trying to save it. No, it's whoever's at slot. At the slot corner. We don't know who it is. We don't know.
Yeah.
But however they play that, it's going to be very important for them to have a fantastic game, whatever number or name it's going to be.
I'm going to go with my last one. I'm going to go with Melvin Ingram. Again, with Highsmith being out, does he still have it? Let's just say, even if he's playing, he's not going to be 100%. Not if he misses a Thursday practice. Yeah. He's going to be used a lot more than maybe we all anticipated. Melvin Ingram, does he still have it? Yeah, I thought preseason he looked okay. Good in the run game. I still want to see, can he get after the quarterback? Can he harass, Josh Allen? That has yet to be seen. So for me, it's the pass rush, and it starts on the outside. I think when we talk more about the upcoming game, more specifically about Josh Allen, you'll know why I think that, but you know what? That's where we'll go with that. So, okay, there's just some players to watch on offense and defense. We're going to take a break. If you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook Live, don't go anywhere. We aren't going anywhere. If you're on the audio side, head over to part 2. We're going to be talking about X factors as well as Bills players you might be concerned about heading into Sunday's matchup. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, senior editor, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining me as always, Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer, and Dave Schofield, the editor of Behind the Steel Curtain. We already talked about in part 1, Steelers players to watch. I want to talk about first Bills players. Bills players that you're thinking, my gosh, this guy scares the crud out of me for a lot of reasons. I think I know who we're going to mention right off the bat. First two, we'll go with. I'll let Dave go first because Dave's always complaining about Brian stealing his answer. So Dave,
I had two. I was going to go whichever one Brian didn't say.
So go with the player that you're looking at, and this is just you. You're thinking this guy scares me entering this game on Sunday. Who is it?
Believe it or not, I'm going with the quarterback. I'm going with Josh Allen. I think he, a lot of people have him as a possible MVP candidate. I know if you do your season-long fantasy football, I know most places had him ranked the number 2 quarterback behind Patrick Mahomes. A lot of big things expected out of him this year. So with that, and it's funny because I saw some people throwing around some numbers in the live chat of like, oh, the Steelers need to do this. They got to make sure this doesn't happen. A lot of that was exactly the stuff that I talked about on the Steelers Stat Geek podcast, which is on our audio only platform. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you go do that because that's exactly what we talked about. But I even try to break it down with like Josh Allen. Oh, well, if he rushes for a lot, do they have more success? There was no correlation. You never know if this guy's going to throw for a ton of yards, run for a ton of yards, or both. He's just he reminds you, I'm not saying they're the same, but the idea of that he can almost do anything and make things happen kind of felt like one BTR early in his career, that he would just kind of, when Ben would shake off those defenders and still complete the passes, stuff like that. You never know with this guy if he's gonna take off, But as Keith Butler said today, hey, I hope he wants to run a lot because we like to hit guys who run, to paraphrase what he said. So, but you can't look at this team and not look at the quarterback and say that, yeah, that's someone we really have to make sure that we account for.
Good pick indeed. Brian, what about you? Player to watch.
First of all, Dave, if you're going to quote Keith Butler, throw in a few dadgummits.
Dadgummits.
They were in it.
Dadgummit, I hope he runs it.
Man, I tell you what, Josh Allen is absolutely, I think he is that next quarterback. In fact, I had a fantasy draft where I just picked him yesterday instead of Mahomes because I think this guy's going to be lighting up numbers, but that's for another thing. The guy that he's throwing to is Stephon Diggs, and the Steelers have this tendency to play better against guys that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", those tall receivers. They kind of match up better with them. But these guys that are 6 foot and fast, they struggle a little bit more with. Remember all those years they struggled with a guy like John Brown who would light them up. John Brown's not on this team anymore, and I'm not talking about him, but I'm talking about Stephon Diggs. I love everything that this guy does. He's just dangerous. They shut him down in the first half last year. You just knew watching that game on December 15th last year that was not going to be enough. The second half, he just lit them up. And he has that ability to turn it on. So this is a guy that I would probably, you've got to stop him. Everyone knows you've got to stop Josh Allen. But if you stop Stephon Diggs, it's going to be easier to stop Josh Allen.
Yeah, those two are obviously the main two that people will bring up when it comes to this. I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball, and it's the other Edmonds brother. What is this one's first name, Brian? What he goes by? I'm not sure if it's his official name like you always talk about.
I think he is. Just that's his name, Tremaine.
Okay, so he doesn't have. Okay, so that's unique. Anyways, Tremaine is a player that I think is getting better and better, and he was a first-round pick for a reason. I think he's a really good inside linebacker. He's someone that can wreck your plans at trying to get it to the tight end, things like that. I'll go in that direction because I knew Diggs and Allen were going to be the first two that you all mentioned. Is it just me, though? Outside of, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, people know these names. Maybe it's just me. And I talked with Michael Beck on my Let's Ride podcast for Friday, and I asked him the same question. I said, you all know the NFL as a whole better than I do. I know the Steelers well, but I don't know all the NFL. What else should I be afraid of with this Buffalo Bills roster? I mean, seriously, tell me.
White, the corner.
Okay, absolutely. Good pick. Anyone else?
Both running backs. Singletary. He was. It's him and Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is a little bit scarier if you think of it. But last year, Singletary was one of the two NFL running backs, you've heard me say this a bunch of times, who had more than 100 carries and started. Actually, he was the only one of two, regardless of carries, that started 16 games at running back in the NFL last year. Him and Derrick Henry. That was it. So he's out there.
What about the trenches? Offensive line, defensive line, they any good? Can they get after the quarterback? Are they good?
Yeah, you've got Ed Oliver, who was a top 10 pick. Yeah. Jerry Hughes is tough. Mario Addison, I believe he's still in there. Is Latuate or Latua? I can never pronounce his name. Be there.
He's been out. He's been out at practice the last 2 days. Well, they didn't practice today. It was a projected injury report, but yeah, he didn't practice on Wednesday. Their Bills fans are a little bit like, yeah, it kind of isn't good if he's not going to be available.
Yeah.
How do you say his name again? I can't remember.
Latuale or something like that.
Or something like that. Yeah.
And
Star. Isn't that his first name? Star?
Star, yes.
Speaking of names, if you see it, I put it up there. I was wrong. It is Fazan Tremaine.
See, that's what I was referring to. I knew Tremaine was his name. I think people in the live chat were like, well, Jeff, his name's Tremaine. No, but it's not their first name anyway.
His first name is Fazan.
Really? Okay. They need to tell Pro Football Reference because they just say he's Tremaine.
I just found that in there. Farrell Edmonds was the dad, so he put everybody with Fuzz in there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do.
I have one more, which I think is the biggest concern. Sean McDermott. I think he is a top-notch NFL coach. He adjusts well in games. He's someone that you. It's hard to one-up him, if you know what I mean, as a coach. It's very difficult to out-coach this Buffalo Bills team. So you just have to beat them. I feel like they're one of the best coach teams in the NFL, at least last year. We'll see if that carries into 2021.
All right. We did this all last season. I want to carry this over into the 2021 regular season. That is our X factor.
Okay.
Thinking of someone that is, whatever the case may be, could decide the outcome of the game based on their play, or really, we can expand this beyond players. It could be coaches. It could be venue. It could be anything. So, guys, week 1, Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. We'll start with Brian. What's your X factor in this game?
Give me Cam Sutton in this game. It's a lot's going to fall on him in this game. I could see him making a big play, or, I'd hate to see it go the other way, but that could.
Okay.
Cam's, I like that. I like that a lot. Dave, what about you? Any X factor?
Let's go Minka. Back there, doing his thing in the defense, seeing if he can disrupt stuff, allow the Steelers to do things in the regular season that they didn't really do in the preseason because he wasn't playing, if you know what I mean. So let's see if Minka can come in there and force that takeaway.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go with Najee Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the fact that when I was reading that article that was written on Buffalo Rumblings, the one thing that everyone, because they asked about Najee Harris, and I answered the question saying he looks like a playmaker whenever he has the ball in his hands. And people started bringing up his preseason stats, and that in the regular season, he's not going to be able to bounce off people and behind the line of scrimmage and make plays out of nothing. So for me, this is Najee Harris. Prove yourself. Even if the offensive line isn't up to snuff early in the season, can you still make plays the way we think he can? Make a play or miss, and then get some positive yardage. Always falling forward, being versatile, a player that can not just run the football inside and outside, but can also catch as a receiver. So I'm really looking forward to Najee Harris. I feel like he is a guy that can take over a game if he starts getting hot. Remember the last time the Steelers won in Buffalo was when Le'Veon Bell went absolutely berserk against the Bills. I think he had more yards combined, receiving and rushing, than the Bills' entire team had combined in that contest. And I want to say that was in 2016. So that's who I have. Now, before we get into what's up, Dave?
I'm going to say one thing I wanted to say about that is people are like, but if the line is that bad, can they take Najee out of the game? You know what you got to do then? You've got to get him with the dump off passes. Exactly what you said, Jeff.
Yep.
if he's getting hit by two guys in the backfield every time they hand the ball off, then guess what you got to do? You've got to hit him on the little flare on the crosser or something and get him involved in the pass game. So you're exactly right.
I want to ask, before we get into over under, I want to ask you guys what your thoughts are about really any NFL team. This isn't just specific to the Steelers. Half of the NFL is going to be traveling, and half the NFL is going to be dealing with crowd noise for the first time since really 2019. Yes, there were some stadiums that had fans last season, never a packed house. Let's talk about how big of a factor that is here. Is it a factor? Is it not a factor? Brian, we'll start with you.
I absolutely don't think that it's going to be a factor because the Steelers are used to this. They're not a team that's really, really crumbles in the face of another crowd. Now, Buffalo, you talked about their fans earlier. Dave and I can attest. I abhor Buffalo fans and Bills Mafia just because the way they came into Heinz Field 2 years ago and didn't have these last 2 years. They had an air about them that they were better than everybody and haven't won a thing. So since then they've done so much better, but they're the most obnoxious fans. But where are they the most obnoxious? They're the most obnoxious fans in the parking lot. That's kind of where they are. I mean, yes, they are throwing women. They are body slamming women through tables. They, I've got tons of video. They body slam their own. They're jumping off of RVs into flaming tables. They're drinking. They're insane and they're obnoxious. One thing that they do though, they back it up by like, hey, we can act like complete idiots, and then we will find your player that we just beat up and give $100,000 to their favorite charity. So we're awesome. And I think that's great that they give money to charity and they do stuff like that. But they are very obnoxious fans. But I don't think it's going to carry over into the stadium to affect the Steelers as much as many people would think.
Dave, what about you?
Well, no matter what ever happens with BTSC or how else everything ever goes down, Brian and I will always have that moment where we got the spoon as we watched the Steelers play the Buffalo Bills. So I said it in Stat Geek. This is not a stadium where you really feel like Steelers Nation could come in and take over. Yes, it's closer to Pittsburgh than some other places, but you know what? Those Bills fans, especially when their team has potential and hope, they are showing up. That's what they're going to do. So I think it is going to be an interesting, a challenging environment. I just don't know that it's going to be to the level that it will severely affect the outcome of the game.
The one thing I just don't want to see are those false start penalties. If they go silent count with Kendrick Green and you look at Dan Moore and you got a whole new offensive line, really, except for Chuks Okorafor at right tackle. I would hate to see that become an issue, but I agree with basically what you all were saying. All right, you all ready for some over-under?
Oh, yeah, can't wait.
Okay, so this is the first time we try and do this in the preseason. It's really difficult. So we're going to – I kept it simple. I kept yardage and total yardage and stuff like that out of it. So let's start off with Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger's touchdown passes. We're going to start with the over-under line set at 2.5. Brian, what say you? Over-under, 2.5 Ben Roethlisberger touchdowns.
I'm saying slightly under. I think he's throwing for 2.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
I'm saying under.
Do you have a number or just it's going to be under that?
I'm saying under.
Okay. I'm going to go with under as well. I think it's going to be 2. Let's go with Najee Harris touchdowns now. I have the line set at 0.5. Therefore, it eliminates the push. Brian, what do you think about Najee getting in the touchdown zone?
I think he's getting into the touchdown zone not just once, but twice. Nice. One in the air and one on the ground.
I like your line of thinking. Dave, what about you?
I'm going to go over with 1, and I'm not going to say if it's air or ground. I'm not sure.
I'm going to go over as well. I think Najee hits pay dirt for the first time in his NFL career. All right, let's go with Chase Claypool was someone I went with all the time last year because he was scoring so many touchdowns. Chase Claypool touchdowns does not have to be receiving, mind you. Does not have to be receivings. 1.5. We'll go with Bryan Anthony Davis.
I'm going to say under.
Okay. Does he hit pay dirt at all for you?
I don't think.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
Under.
All right. I'm going under as well. Here's what I'm interested in. Just your all's take. TJ Watt sacks in this game. The line set at 2. Bryan, what do you think?
I could see him getting 1. Let's go under.
Okay. Dave?
I before you set the line,
You're
I
gonna
thought of the
push.
number
You're
I
gonna
wanted.
push.
I'm not going to push. I'm not going to push.
Okay.
I'm going to say under. I'm going to say he gets 1.5. It would have been 2, but someone else shows up along with him.
See, sacks are tough because you can actually have a half a sack.
Yeah.
So trying to develop that line stuff. Okay, so you said under 1.5?
That's what you say, 2.25.
So you said under, Dave?
I said under with 1.5.
All right. I'm going to say push. I think he gets 2. I think he's going to be fired up.
See, I didn't think I was allowed to push.
You're allowed to push. You're allowed to push.
Now, of course, you want to say push. You set the line. You did the
I
right
know.
line.
What the heck? All right. So turnovers by the Pittsburgh Steelers, giving the ball away. The line set at 1.5. Bryan, what do you think?
I'm going to say over with 2.
Dave?
See, I think this is the key, one of the keys to the game. If they need to be in that positive turnover margin. I mean, do you realize last year the Steelers only lost 1 game where they were even or ahead in turnover margin, and that 1 game was when it was even, and it was to the Buffalo Bills. So, you said 1.5.
That's the line set. Yes,
I'll say under.
I'm going to go with under as well. I think they might turn it over once, but I don't think they turn it over twice. How about Steelers takeaways, defensive takeaways? The line set at 1, even. Bryan?
Even. I think they're going to get 1.
Dave?
Push.
I'm going to say push as well. I think 1. I'd love to see him get more, Josh Allen get him flustered, maybe a strip sack or something. I'm not sure if it happens. So Steelers overall sacks, defensive sacks. Out of line, this is kind of high for me, but 4. What do you think, Bryan?
I think they're getting 2. I think the sack streak continues, but I don't think they go nuts.
Okay, Dave, what about you?
I'm going to go under because last year during the regular season, there was only 1 game where the Steelers only had 1 sack, and it was against the Buffalo Bills. So I think they'll get more than 1, but I don't think they'll get to 4.
All right, I think I'm going to go under with 3. And then last, how many sacks surrendered by the Steelers? So that's this new offensive line. I have the line set at 3.5. Bryan, what do you think?
Under 3.
Okay, Dave?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to say under. I'd love to say, because they never gave up more than 2 last year. So I'd love to say that, but I just don't. There's so much with this offense. I'm not sure. Are they going to hold on to the ball longer this year? I'll say under, but I'm not sure if it's going to be 2 or 3.
I hope it's under. I hope it's under. All right, before we get to trivia, let's do our score predictions. So this is the time. I know that some of you have already given your predictions, but for those people that might just listen to the preview or I haven't heard your predictions yet, I'd love to know what you all think. Bryan, why don't you go ahead and give us your prediction first? How do you see it shaking down? By the way, the spread is, the last I checked, the Steelers are getting 6.5 points on the road in this game on Sunday. So we want the spread and straight up. So Bryan, what do you think?
Did you want the over-under?
Oh, sure. What is the over-under right now?
All right,
I'm bringing it up right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Give me over.
The spread is still 6.5, and the over-under is 48.5.
Oof. Okay. 48.5. That's insane. Okay, go ahead, Bryan.
You know what? I'm going to defer to Dave because I'm looking up my prediction. I can't remember what it was.
I didn't put mine in writing yet, but yeah,
if I come up with a new one, you'll be like, "Well, you said this," and then I'll get that message. So
I know what you mean. I didn't put mine in the article yet because I wanted to save it for here. I did reveal it off air after the Scobro show because Rich has to do his. With the news today of TJ Watt, I'm riding on such a high. I so wanted to change it, but I'm going to stick with what it is. I am going in a very low-scoring affair. That's why I was going under in a lot of these touchdowns. I'm actually going 17-13 Buffalo is what I'm doing here because I think the defense does enough to keep the Steelers in this game. I think the Steelers cover. And it's not that I don't think they can win. I think they absolutely can. But I think a lot of different things have to go right. And there's a lot of question marks that we still don't know with like slot corner, the offensive line, and they need to kind of all work together in order for them to succeed. So I think they could. I'm just going odds wise that it's just going to be a close one instead.
All right, Brian, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. And you know what? This is the part of the show that I hate the most. I hate this because sometimes I go with my gut and my gut's usually wrong. So that's why I like to go with my gut. But I'm not a pessimistic guy. I'm actually a very optimistic person. But I've seen this movie before and I've seen it happen. I could actually see the Steelers they're not going to get crushed in this game. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they win. But what I'm seeing in my head is that they lose this game 30-24, but they win the rematch in the playoffs. And that's what keeps on playing in my head. That's what I keep feeling. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and, like Michael O'Malley says, pull a Costanza, and I'm going to go I'm going to be pessimistic on this and say that they lose. But once again, how many times have we seen them go to AFC championship games and losing week one? A lot.
All right. I'm the one that is taking over the duties of doing the staff pick article for Behind the Steel Curtain. So I've already taken a look at almost everyone's picks that
not mine,
not Dave's, and mine's not up there yet either. But still amazed by a lot of us that are contributing in some way, shape, or form to this platform, whether it's podcast, written, or both, that a lot of people think that this is a game the Steelers are going to just trip and fall. And I could see it. I'm not going to be stunned if they lose this game. I just think that there's something special about this team. I'm really amped up. Like Dave said, after TJ Watt signing that contract, I made this prediction, though, before that news even broke. I think the Steelers find a way to win this football game. And I think that Chris Boswell is the leg that does it. Dave said the other day that he hasn't had those kicks. He hasn't been in a position to have those game-winning kicks. I think this is one of those. I think the Steelers win 27-24. And it's going to be a game where Buffalo is going to look every bit as good as everyone thought. And I think a lot of people are going to say, wow, the Steelers, maybe they're better than we thought. And it was listening to that Chase Claypool interview when he said, I'm not going to say anything, but there are some position groups that are going to be a lot better than people think because I see them every day in practice. And that stuck out to me. For some reason it did. So make sure you check that out. Daniel H. gives us $1.99. This is a good topic before we get to trivia. What are the AFC North standings after week one? Shoot, the way everyone else is predicting, it could be everyone's 0-1.
It could be, yeah.
I mean, you think about Pittsburgh and Buffalo, you have the Monday Nighter, Baltimore, who doesn't have any running backs. I don't think left on their roster after Gus Edwards towards ACL today, and they think so did Marcus Peters.
He did.
Those are confirmed. My gosh, they're looking at Le'Veon Bell, and I don't even know who the other guy's name is.
And then apparently they were also signing late today, looking at Devontae Freeman.
Oh, so not Todd Gurley. Okay, that's fine. So for me, I mean, do you think that them going to Las Vegas, them going to play the Raiders on Monday night? That's a tough game. You look at the Browns going to Kansas City, and then I believe the Bengals play help me out here, gentlemen. Come on.
Do we care?
No, I'm trying to
I know. I'm just trying to remember.
Minnesota.
Vikings.
Minnesota
Vikings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tip.
I would not be shocked if that ends up being the case. And I came up with the score of my game early in the week because I didn't want emotion. And I said, I'm going to stick with it because I didn't want emotion to get the best of me. Because right now, if I had to pick it, I'd still keep it with the Bills at 17, but I would be giving the Steelers more.
Yeah.
That's just me.
All right. Let's do some trivia. Dave, you ready?
Yeah. I will say this. I do think there will be no teams are going to be more than one game back in the AFC North after this week. So it's going to be nice and close.
All right. Very good.
All right. This trivia, it doesn't really have as much to do with the Bills or anything like that. I mean, I could have gone and done something fancy. Like I already mentioned the stat that the Steelers haven't lost a 1 p.m. kickoff in Buffalo since 1999. Not in Buffalo, but against Buffalo, just whether home or away. So like they've lost the last two to them. but they've been primetime games. So it'll be interesting to see. They've only ever faced off once in week 1, but I got to look at the Steelers schedule as a whole, and I found it interesting. And I'm like, okay, the Steelers they're going to go AFC East, AFC West, AFC North. I'm like, okay, so they're starting with 3 straight AFC games before they have an NFC matchup in week 4 against Green Bay. When's the last time the Steelers opened up with 3 straight AFC games?
Shoot.
If I must, I can start to give hints as we need to, but
this is a Bryan question. This is not a Jeff question. Go
no,
ahead, Bryan.
Jeff can think of schedules.
Yeah, but it's to start the season. Like I can remember 2019. Seattle was week 2 when Ben got hurt, so that kicks 2019 out. Last season, 2020, they started against New York, so that kicks 2020 out. 2018, I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone 2018. Go ahead, Bryan. You have a guess?
Well, they started off against Cleveland in 2018, and my gosh, I don't know. Let's go ahead and say it's not 15. Let's go ahead and say 2017.
Okay, I will tell you this: that in 2018, that was the week 3 was the infamous stiff arm heard round the world by one Vance McDonald.
Tampa Bay, yeah.
Okay, 2017, they actually played 2 of their first 3 games were against NFC opponents. They played Minnesota in week 2 and Chicago in week 3. To go back to the last season, and it's funny because it's the only season in the Mike Tomlin era that they've opened with 3 straight AFC games was in 2012 when the Steelers played Denver, New York, and Oakland, then had a bye week, and they came off the bye to play the Eagles. So that was the last time. But what's interesting is the Tomlin era is what kicked it off in 2007, because if you start in 2007 and keep going back, they didn't play an NFC opponent in the first 3 games until 1998. They had a gap from 98 to 07 where they did not play any NFC opponents in the first 3 weeks of the season. So
that's crazy. That is a good statistic. Bryan looks confused.
Not that it matters.
98 to 07?
98 to 07, they did not play an NFC team in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Okay, I am actually going to go ahead and challenge that because I was at week 2 in 1998, and I believe it was either the Bears or the Washington football
1998
team.
Was the Bears. That's why I said from 1998 to 2007, meaning 98 they did and 2007 they did. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, those were the last years they did it. Sorry if that wasn't very clear.
It was
a challenge.
But you were right. It was the Bears.
The
won
Mike Tomlin challenge flag was just like you're just like Coach Tomlin, Bryan. It looks like you got it. I've got him. I finally got him, and
I did
sorry,
it.
You lose it. You lost. It.
Why do I challenge the Oracle? I mean, I
don't know.
No. It was just a confusion with how I stated it. Meaning, was I included 98 in the year that they didn't, or they did? So yeah.
Bryan, do you have any trivia for?
Yes, I do, and I love this. I love this one. So in the I consider the modern era 1969 and up, and I know the merger is 70 and up. But so if you look all the way back, the Steelers have played all but 2 teams in the AFC on opening game. There are 2 teams that they have never played in week 1. Who are they?
In the AFC?
Yes.
Okay. Are you
And I'm going to call them current AFC teams.
The Seattle Seahawks go into the NFC doesn't okay.
Yeah, so teams that are currently in the AFC because
and you know what? I'm going to say this. There's no trickiness to this.
Okay.
There's no.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess the Raiders just off the top of my head.
I'm trying to remember.
But I can't remember them ever in my lifetime. I don't remember that.
Houston, they did. Cleveland, they did a bunch. It's been Baltimore. It's been Have they ever opened against Cincinnati? I mean, they had to in there somewhere, right?
No.
Is it Cincinnati?
Cincinnati's won.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
I just couldn't think of one. So I'm like,
There's another, and it's not the Oakland, and it's not the Raiders
there's
of
two?
any kind. They're 2-1.
Okay.
Yes. The other team is not a divisional team.
I was gonna say because it's not. You mean not division? I know it's. Let's see. Because Houston would have been the easy one because they're the newest, but it's not them. It's not. I'm thinking of how long they've been around. It's not Jacksonville. It's not Buffalo because that was 78. New England, Miami. They have. I'm just eliminating them in my mind. The Jets. I'm thinking about the Jets.
You would be correct.
Would I? I'm
Yeah.
just trying to go through teams and think of them
Yep.
if I remember them at all. Because
Now-
yeah.
The team that they've played the most, the Cleveland Browns, and they're 4-1-1 against the Cleveland Browns. They've played Baltimore 4 times, and they're 2-2. There are 3 teams in the AFC that they have never beaten on opening day. Do you know who they are?
AFC.
Yes. And it's not the obvious one. Jeff, you can chime in. I thought Jeff was frozen
Jeff.
for a second.
No, just this is not my wheelhouse.
So okay. So okay. And you said that you're going back to 769, right?
Yeah, but that really doesn't play
70.
into it.
Yeah, it doesn't play
No.
into it. Post merger teams they haven't beat. And now they say that doesn't matter how many times they played them.
No, doesn't matter how many times. They just don't
Okay.
beat them on opening day.
Yeah.
It's been more than once.
Let's see. I know I can't say New England because I think they beat them a long time ago.
1979 Monday Night Football.
I see. Okay. I'm only remembering this from stats that I've looked up. A team they've had. I'm going to go with Denver.
Denver, they are 0-2 against. They are also they cannot beat Kansas City.
Okay, because Denver's just a team that they don't beat
Yes.
very well anyway.
And you know who they cannot beat on opening day is the Jacksonville Jags.
Really? How many
Yes.
times did they play them? At least twice, right?
I have them twice in 0-2. One was the Jim Miller game in 96, and one was that 2001 game. They went to the AFC Championship game, but they got crushed on opening day.
Didn't they?
Right,
They didn't even score a touchdown, right?
Yeah, it was the game before 9/11. So it was that game that
Okay. Now
almost
you're going to make me look this
20
up.
years ago to the day.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here you go. You want to go opening game since the merger? Can you name the well, I can't say that. I was just trying to look up stuff. What about teams that the Steelers got shut out against?
I know the Cleveland Browns, they lost 51-0 in 89.
Yep. Okay.
And in 86 they lost like 30-0 to Seattle.
Yes, they did. There's one more for sure I know of because it's more recent, and that was the 16-0 in 2000 against the team.
The Ravens, yeah.
Yeah. So let's not talk about those.
There you go.
Jeff's like, I'm done.
Good
Sorry we
trivia,
lost you,
gentlemen.
Jeff.
Good trivia
those
there.
were fun.
Yeah, tons. Okay, let's go with some final thoughts. Brian, why don't you go ahead and go?
You know what? I am so glad that opening week is here. I'm looking around the division. You're seeing a very interesting change in the division. It's unfortunate that the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm not being facetious here when I say this, have lost so many players to injury. I've been taught to never root for an injury on another team. I always want to be the team at its best. I hate to see all of those injuries. But one thing that has happened throughout this entire thing, with everything that is going on, this division has gotten tighter. This is going to be a phenomenal AFC North. I believe that the Browns are going to do well. I don't think that they are Super Bowl favorites like Cleveland thinks that they are, and the whole world thinks that they are. Remember, even if you lose players like the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers have lost players in the past. It's still a dangerous franchise. Don't count any of these teams out. A lot of people have been counting out the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. I picked against them this week just because it's just it's the movie that's playing in my head. If they win this game and I'm celebrating, I'm the first person to eat crow and say, yeah, I was wrong, because I'm married. I say I was wrong at least 17 times a day, and that's before lunch. So with that being said, we're fans. If we knew the right answer, we'd be billionaires because we'd be putting it down every single week in Vegas. When I talked to Chase Claypool the other day, Jeff brought it up. There's one of the questions I wanted to ask him was because the heart of the team and how much do you believe in yourself? Because a lot of pundits are saying that you guys are going to be like ninth in the AFC. It's like, we are going to surprise people. And Jeff mentioned the position groups. He's seen what he's seen every day in practice. He really believes. This team believes. And Jeff said he believes. I know Dave believes. I believe in this team too. So I'm really excited. I don't know if they win this game this week, but we talked about it earlier about 2001. We could talk about 1997 AFC Championship game. They lost that week too. They've lost a lot. They were in the AFC Championship game in 94, lost in week 1 too. Week 1 losses do happen. It's how you grow from that and what you're putting together. And what I think this team is putting together is going to be magic.
Very well said. Dave, go ahead. Final thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts. If you're one of those overly optimistic people, Jeff Hartman, then let's say you projected the Steelers to go 12-5 this year. That's pretty ambitious. If you were to look at the Steelers schedule and pick out 5 losses, chances are this would be one of them, even if you have the Steelers going for 12 wins because of the difficulty of this game. Now, it still doesn't mean that the Steelers can't win this game. What I'm saying is that what we're going to learn about the Pittsburgh Steelers for this season is going to be even more than just whether it's a slash in the win column or a slash in the loss column. That you want to see the Steelers go into this game and come out with positive things. You want to see the offensive line doing a good job. You want to see the Steelers moving the ball. You want to see the defense coming up with stops and putting pressure on the quarterback. There's so many things to take away from it. And then if the Steelers get this victory, my goodness, what's not holding this team back anymore? That would be huge for this team to go into Buffalo and win in week 1 with a new coordinator and with everything else going on. That would be enormous. So just remember that, fans, that there hopefully is still going to be plenty of good things to take from this game. And if one of them is a victory, then the sky's the limit.
All right, let's get to this super chat here. Tom Muir gives us $5. Appreciate the tip. He said, sorry, bad. They lost all those AFC Championship games. I'd rather look at the last time they had the hardest schedule and that end result. Well, we know that was 2000.
They might have had 2008 season.
Right.
They might have had another hardest schedule in there as well. There might have been one since. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on how you break it down. But yeah, we know what you're saying. Let's remember 2008.
All right, so that does it. Make sure that you follow BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, and also on our podcast platform so that you get all of our shows, not just the live shows on YouTube, but also all of our audio. That's our morning lineup. That's also this brand new noon lineup, which is absolutely killing it. So make sure you check those out. And then, my goodness, we'll be back next week talking about the Steelers and Raiders in week 2. The things, it's like a snowball. It's getting rolling. Yeah. Hope you all are ready. Enjoy the game. We'll be back on Sunday after the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers post-game show. So check us out there. In the meantime, go Steelers. And Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
There it is. Have a good one, everyone.